This morning I had a picture of Representative Joanne Favors on a trampoline, bouncing on the trampoline, getting her weight down and then higher. And she's looking, as she goes to the top of her trajectory, she's looking over a wall. The wall is really a box. She's in a box, and the trampoline is in a box, and she's bouncing on it, and she's getting higher. And she's seeing, as she gets, or the acme of her trajectory, we could say, she's looking over the top of this box. And that is a very exciting thing to consider. And that is in the context here of her headline in the Chattanooga Time-Free Press, where she is exercising a commendable localism that really is not part of her political makeup or her political ancestry, if you will, or her custom of thought. And that is to say, she's thinking outside the box, and she's looking in a way outside the box. And that is, we want to say, thanks to lococentrism, or in my own usage there, that would be nougacentrism, where somehow you think that we have local solutions to a school problem. She has been dealing with so-called five failed schools that are part of the Hamilton County nexus of factory warehouses in the educational industry. Tennessee allows counties and cities to become business partners with each other, with the state, in the operation of public schools. And she is expressing, I would say, a regard of local people and having local solutions, rather than just assuming that the state in Nashville, with Candace McQueen, the education secretary, stepping in to save the problem. Now, these schools have had, over the past 4 years or so, according to the Times-Free Press, have had an injection of $11 million, and that really hasn't made much of a difference. Just goes to show that when you have a bureaucratic system, as opposed an administrative and bureaucratic system, as opposed to a market-based, consumer-based, parent-oriented system, denationalized, if you will, local, you have a reward for a poverty of results. You have no results or bad results. And the problem is not that you spent $11 million more, it's that you didn't spend $22 million more in that period. You didn't spend enough. And so we just have to have more money. That if you have that as your analysis, you're never going to see the real problem. In fact, thinking that you're underfunded as a bureaucracy prevents you from even dreaming to think of a market solution. Now, of course, market solutions are not part of this story. They really haven't been at all. Any story that covers public schools is always going to be about a tangle between Nashville and local officials in the county system. And it won't be really answers. There won't be answers that favor human interaction and a real market where the people who pay can evaluate and move on if they're not happy with a particular service or product. The state is giving Hamilton County two options, according to this account. Also, it's at Chattanooga.com. There are two options for the district's 5 schools that are said to be in an I zone. If they're low performing, they're put into a category called the I zone. It sounds very something like that Apple might produce. It sounds very positive, very advanced, very progressive. The options are to allow the state to take over their administration by adding these schools to the achievement school district, or for the school district to work in unison with the state via a proposed partnership district. So there are two options, both of which belittle local people with local solutions. Well, the reason people locally have a problem is because they're connected with the state, and they really can't solve the problem because they're in the box. They're inside this box that says public schools serve a vital function, and we really can't step aside from the state and its provision of this solution, of this service. We just have to maintain this, and the only way we can really work on improving the test results and improving the hearts, minds, and souls of the students, which of course are not ever in view in the administrative realm, is to jigger numbers, jigger personnel, reorient the administration to have maybe a new agency or a new commission or a new panel or a new oversight board, or hire an expert or hire, empower schools. This story points out. Joanna Favors is saying, well, a company in Boston does not know what Chattanooga needs. That's the Massachusetts-based consulting business that is hired by school systems to improve academic performance, as the story says. Well, these are not real solutions, but I do commend Mrs. Favors, or should I say Dr. Favors? She has a doctorate in the medical, I think the medical administration field. She is bouncing on the trampoline, and she's looking over the top of the box. She's in the box, and so is everyone who thinks and discusses the school problem in our county, as if there is a solution. There is no solution in the box. But here she's looking to see this, and that is that local people, our people here, can solve this problem. I think she may be mistaken, but I like the direction of her impulse, and that is that the people here, though we have bad ideas, right? We have progressive ideas that are bad. They're always they're never for the individual. They're always for the system. They're about systems and institutions, the progressive theory, not about personal responsibility. But here she is, she's breaking from her past, and she's breaking from the slough of despond, which you could say is the bottom of the trampoline jump, where she's in the very bottom of her box, and she sees nothing but a bit of sky at the top, and maybe a sky stripe. But then she bounces up, and she sees over the top, and she sees, well, that's where you, my listener, are. You, the listener of the David Tulis program here at Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and FM 92.7. It's Cash Friday today. And on this day, you, my listener, and I go to our bank or our lender, no doubt a member of the American Bankers Association, and we do something striking and bold. Now, what I have in my hand here is our two pieces of paper, and they are green rectangle. This is official paper. It is protected by the Secret Service, and anybody who tries to print paper with these designs and numbers written on them will be hounded out, found out, chased down, investigated, and finally arrested for not having permission to print this kind of paper. These are two pieces of paper. They are called Federal Reserve notes, and on each is the number 50. Now, the number 50 is written 8 times on this piece of paper. And I wonder if they'd written it 9 times, if it would be worth more. But no, it says 50 on it, and these are completely arbitrary, wonderfully creative. It's like a little bit of work of fiction, right? These are like little novels that tell a story, that you enter into the narrative stream of these stories, printed out on small green rectangles, very finely engraved. The former late President Grant, by the way, is on these bills. So on Cash Friday, what we do is this, to show that we're independent, to show that we are, you, my listener, and I, we are not bound by the system. Though we operate in our withdrawal in terms of the system, in terms of its own paper notes, we are saying we prefer the physical over the abstract. And we do have a bit of privacy, as they say in England. We have a bit of privacy in the use of this money, which is in the end untraceable. And in the cash economy, the cash economy is the freedom economy. That's where Hispanic immigrants are. That's where the underground economy is, the burgeoning gray market, the burgeoning free market. In some places, such as Italy and India, it can be as much as half of the economy is outside of official view. It's not part of the official GDP. It's not measured. And in places like Italy, the underground economy is so big that you can build houses apart from the permitting and zoning process, completely in cash, completely outside the system. There, it's built into culture, right? If you're a scofflaw, you are a hero, and no one looks down upon you. And that is because the nation state has lost its way and continues to decline in public regard. There, in India, and even here in the United States, Americans are much less likely to do things as they do in European countries, and even in dark and backward and dictator-run, military unit-run Africa, where bribery and cash are part of the economy, and nothing can be done apart from a bribe to an official, or a soldier with his Kalashnikov on his shoulder, looking at you and grinning with a very bright, wide, bright show of teeth at you, demanding to be rewarded for letting you pass. Right? That's what you find at roadblocks in Africa. I'm holding up two $50 bills, and if you and I do this, it won't make a bit of difference. But if someone catches on what we're doing, there may be a call for an armored car to come up from Atlanta at the Federal Reserve Bank there and bring some cash up, because there's so little cash in the system. The system is based on confidence, and it is highly illiquid, highly brittle, and the friction of the debt economy is increasing, probably every day. You know, I argue here at the David Tulis program for the market economy, and yet we don't want to have the market economy and everything. The market economy implies a free market. It implies capitalism. It implies an even playing field that we don't have, except if we read the history books, we might learn something about even playing fields. But now we have state-based, nationalized economies, credit-run. There is, as I say, there's no real cash in the system, and people are very hard pressed. I'm in sales, and I see the lack of flexibility, the lack of liquidity in the economy very readily, and this is a very disheartening report to give. But while we like the idea of a marketplace economy, what we're concerned about are all the things that are part of that market economy, which really shouldn't be. And here we have our problem, and this problem is traced by writers such as Petirim Sorokin, the Russian sociologist who was the head of the Harvard sociology department during World War II, and his book A Crisis of Our Age, and then more recently, Charles Hugh Smith's book Resistance, Revolution, and Liberation: A Model for Positive Change, which is a book I've very carefully read and very carefully marked, not just because I'd like to talk to you about things that he points out, but because he's explaining the problem with a lack of local economy, with what I could call here a lack of non-market economy. And I say, well, wait a minute, we're for free markets, right? We want there to be free markets and market economy. Well, yes, we do, but think of all the things that should not be in the marketplace, right? Things that should not be this subject to the profit motive, and all the things that have become part of the profit motive. Think about eating. Well, we're the local food media platform in Chattanooga, lococentrism, local food. Yesterday we had a great time with a creamery farmer in Spencer, Tennessee, far place away from here, about an hour from Chattanooga, comes into town 3 days a week to deliver milk and cream, all unpasteurized, right? All part of the herd share program. Well, that's a marketplace economy, and I admit that. But the idea of local food is that we come back to our farmers, and maybe we grow a few things on our own. That's one of the things our Sam Spade program here at Nooga Radio argues. There should be parts of life, right, of modern life, that are not in the economy, because they're not part of buying and selling. They're not part of marketing. They're not part of profit, of expansion of a market. These are simply things that we do personally outside of commerce. And what I'm saying is that there's been really a loss of the private life. Think about eating, just about that again. We don't grow our own anymore, and so many things that we do which could be done at home, outside of profit and loss, we do in restaurants, right? We do things that we have to pay for that really could be done without buying something or doing something where we have to pay a sales tax, right? The sales tax is indicative of it being a public act. In commerce, the cafe, the restaurant, making their livings and acting as a steward of the Department of Revenue claims against itself, right? The store, the restaurant is empowered and forced to be the tax collector, and to make sure every transaction generates a tax chit for Governor Haslam. But what about the things that are not really part of part of the commercial world. That is where private life occurs. That is where we should have our souls. Our souls should be there, not necessarily in the market. But because we live in a debt-based economy, we live in a state consumer economy. And I know that sounds like a lot, but there is consumerism. Smith says is a sociopathological construct. It's something that we've been trained to become by media, by big companies, and by the state itself. And he says that this construct of consumerism has a single purpose, and that's to undermine authentic identity. And he says to drive the populace into debt serfdom ruled by centralized concentrations of capital and political power. In other words, we're all borrowers now, right? Everything we do is in public, and everything that we do makes the market economy, makes it hum. We have, in his analysis, a national versus a local economy. We have old social connections, and then we have the new identity, the new construct of consumerism, which is goods for display. And your satisfaction, your identity, your authenticity is tied up with your goods, right? Your gadgets. And he traces in his book, he traces how these forms of non-market economy, your private life, have been eroded, and how people have become atomized. They're all individual. And he says, if we understand individual identity as an ecosystem of nodes and connections, then we will recognize that the isolated individual constructed of mass-produced brands and mass-marketed tribes is a chimera, a pretense and illusory identity fashioned in an environment that has been strip-mined of authentic sources of identity. Though we give lip service to devotion, service, accomplishment, and a number of other behavioral signifiers, who among us would trade a walled mansion and a fleet of luxury vehicles for devotion and feel we got the better end of the deal? He says these things that we do that are part of consumerism make us feel larger, right? We own more things. We have brand name cars, brand name clothing, but he calls that a system of social defeat. And the system, the national economy system, is driving the individual to live in terms of social defeat. And he, in his listing of things that could be private, he points out how people eat out a lot, and then he says, so each social circle revolves around a formalized, often abstract purpose: work, spectator, sport, and so on. If someone meets one person in one context, they are unlikely to see them in another context. Atomized individuals have limited connections to other atomized individuals, and since people live and work and pursue recreation in widely scattered roles, individuals make only fleeting connections with other people in the real world. In other words, a few people would recognize the butcher in their local supermarket, and even fewer would ever meet that individual outside the supermarket. And security, personal security, again, the same thing: multiple locks, security alarms, houses bristling with firearms. Few people practice real-world skills. Yards are beautified for show. Vegetable gardens are frowned upon. They're kept in the back. Music is seldom played live, non-commercially. It's generated by recordings, digital devices. Social gatherings that do occur are formalized. Many people eat alone, hurriedly, or while they absorb 4 to 6 hours daily of TV, films, spectator sports, web surfing, and individually consumed digital entertainment. Shopping is a primary pastime of many people. It's their relaxation, their entertainment, their fun. And of course, much of that occurs in big box stores. And of course, a lot is done online. And your house is so full of goods, mass-produced belongings. That's what we have our houses full of. And it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. The poor and the rich alike have houses crammed with gadgets. I think in my house, how many computers that we have. My son, 14, is saying, "Dad, we need to go to EPB to have more gig power." This is what we have. The common denominators of life are that life revolves around earning or collecting money to consume centrally manufactured, distributed, and marketed goods and services in formalized settings. Much of one's time is spent alone, at home, the office, or in a vehicle, consuming digital media and entertainment. Life in public is limited to formalized, for-profit, single-use environments, and most of life is beneath the day-to-day routines, centrally controlled, manufactured, and marketed. Market economy signifiers have high values, and non-market social signifiers have low value. And we're here to emphasize and encourage the non-market signifiers, and that's the idea of local economy and marketing. We are brought to you by Nooganomics.com, the website for man who matters. David Tulis here, 92.7 FM and 1240 AM. We argue for local economy and the free market in Chattanooga and beyond. And the slogan, it's a great slogan that you can take. It's not trademarked. And that is, you should love your neighbor and buy local. David Tulis, we're going to meet a fascinating family with love of other as the center of their labor. David Tulis.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
A four-vehicle collision and an explosion in Marion County has claimed the lives of two. Lieutenant John Harmon with the Tennessee Highway Patrol says it happened at 2:10 a.m. A commercial motor vehicle crossed over the median and smashed into another commercial vehicle, causing an explosion on 24 westbound. Tennessee Volunteer Fire Department Training Center was burglarized on Highway 58, but the items that were stolen were $30,000 worth of training equipment. The police say it's really only useful as training equipment. They're not sure what the burglar is going to do with it. Police say Hunter Hanks, an 18-year-old, is accused of breaking into 4 vehicles and stealing money and other items out of them on Grace Avenue at a gated community. Hanks was caught after a suspicious activity call was reported to the police at 911. They found Mr. Hanks and asked him to raise his hands out of his pockets. That's when they spotted a handgun on his hip. Cops say a search revealed multiple cell phones and multiple wallets. He was arrested. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
After this briefly mild start, expect lots of sunshine and very warm weather for your Friday. Afternoon highs back into the upper 80s tonight. Fair lows 62 to 65 for Saturday. More sunshine, still mainly dry highs, upper 80s with a few late day showers and storms on Sunday. Celebrate the savings at JCPenney with great deals on select items, on pillows, tanks for her, and stylish shorts for him and her. That's getting your pennies worth at JCPenney. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio.
Choose Exit Realty Scenic City. Need to sell your house? Want to buy another house? Choose Exit Realty Scenic City. Our goals are simple. If you're selling, we get you the best price possible in the quickest amount of time with the least amount of hassle. Our agents are professional, competent, and courteous. We stay in touch every step of the way. If you're buying, we make sure you get all the information necessary to choose the right house in the right location at the best price. Exit Realty is one of the fastest growing real estate companies in North America. Our agents have extensive training, state-of-the-art technology, and full support that allows us to do the best job possible for you. If you're in the market to buy or sell, call us today, 423-551-EXIT. That's 423-551-3948. If you're an agent or considering a career in real estate, call us today. See what Exit Realty can do for you. No desk fees, residual income, technology to the max, and people first. Call us today, 551-EXIT. That's 551-3948. We're located at 7610 Hamilton Park Drive, just off the Bonnie Oaks exit.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us. Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me. Action Rentals.
Final expenses, funeral cost, cemetery lots, unpaid medical bills, probate cost, debts. Debts are due and payable upon death of debtor. Will these costs produce a burden and hardship on your loved ones? Who will be responsible? How will they handle them? These costs can total many thousands of dollars, only compounded greater with the grief of losing a family member. A safe and secure way to provide for these costs is with an affordable life insurance from Covenant Group Insurance and Financial Services. Covenant Group is a local company with local agents. Covenant Group still makes house calls. Covenant Group only represents A-rated companies. With many options to offer, Covenant Group can accommodate almost any budget. Great discounts for good health and plans available for impaired risk. Call today for a free, no-obligation consultation in the convenience of your home. Call Steve or Jada at 423-855.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
A four-vehicle collision and an explosion in Marion County has claimed the lives of two. Lieutenant John Harmon with the Tennessee Highway Patrol says it happened at 2:10 a.m. A commercial motor vehicle crossed over the median and smashed into another commercial vehicle, causing an explosion on 24 westbound. Tennessee Volunteer Fire Department Training Center was burglarized on Highway 58, but the items that were stolen were $30,000 worth of training equipment. The police say it's really only useful as training equipment. They're not sure what the burglar is going to do with it. Police say Hunter Hanks, an 18-year-old, is accused of breaking into 4 vehicles and stealing money and other items out of them on Grace Avenue at a gated community. Hanks was caught after a suspicious activity call was reported to the police at 911. They found Mr. Hanks and asked him to raise his hands out of his pockets. That's when they spotted a handgun on his hip. Cops say a search revealed multiple cell phones and multiple wallets. He was arrested. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Warming up out there through your afternoon with lots of sunshine. Mainly dry for a while, highs mid and upper 80s. Tonight, a few clouds will pass through, lows 62 to 65. For Friday and Saturday, continued mainly dry and very warm, highs each day into the upper 80s. Do you have a pesky tree that needs to be removed around your home or business? Call Paul Bunyan Tree Service now at 423-421-2104. That's 421-2104. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com, Chattanooga's premier house buyer. Do you have a house you need to sell fast? We are buying. Call us today. We are local folks. We will buy your house as is, no repairs needed. We will give you a cash offer and close on the day of your choice. Call us right now, 423-834-7321. Need to sell a house fast? We are buying. Are you experiencing one of these situations? Inherited a house you have no need for? Behind on your property taxes? Nightmare tenants making your life miserable? Too many repairs needed and don't have a desire to fix? Behind on payments and facing foreclosure? Recently divorced and need a way out of the house? Never really wanted to be a landlord and just want to cash out? Trying to relocate and need to sell your house? Do you need to sell a house fast? We are buying. No fees, no hassles, no repair costs. Close on the day of your choice. Our process is simple. Call us today. We inspect your property right away. We make you a fair cash offer. We close on the day of your choice. Call us today, 423-834-7321. Visit our website, iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com. Call us today, 423-834-7321. iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com.
If I'm the city's most intelligent man, it's because I take 2 shots of Mind Enhancement Complex every day. Nature's Finest keeps me stocked with my mainstay, Formula 4. That's where I start. Formula 4. Industrial farming, soil depletion, mineral empty food. I just say no. Ask about supplements, health, stamina, circulation, heart, prostate under control. Get the Nooga Radio David Tulis freebie. Save $2 on every 5, 20% off. Nooga Radio, Lee Highway, nature's finest.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us, Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me, Action Rentals.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
Martin Truex Jr. is off the pace and he is headed to the pit lane. Elliott Powers around the outside. Michael McDowell pops a right front tire. Here's Martin Truex to the bottom. Blaney blocked him off too. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott went 4 wide on the back straightaway. They're side by side for the lead.
Hear it live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
The voice of NASCAR.
Where the Republican leadership is. Here's Brian. Hey, Brian, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Pretty good. Are you tired of winning yet?
Every day, it's like Christmas morning, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
It's just like Christmas morning with the Grinch right outside the window lurking, because you know he's always there, but we still get to open our presents.
Exactly.
Amen, brother. All right. Thank you, Brian, very much. Ed, you're next up. Ed, welcome to the Mike Gallagher Show.
Well, thanks so much. I just wanted to make two quick points. The first point is I agree with you. I think the Paris Accord, getting out of it, is the right thing to do. And I would just add that, how do these movie stars think people get to the movies? How do they think the production on the movies happen? How do they think people go to Disneyland? 50,000 people are flying there or driving there or using electricity every time they use a ride. I mean, I don't think they care that much about global emissions if it hit their global pocket.
I go back. Ed, I go back to the private jet thing so much only because, to me, it's such a stark example of the hypocrisy. Believe me, Leonardo DiCaprio could fly commercial. They have beautiful first class cabins. You could sit in the front. Bob Iger of Disney, he could fly commercial. And I read one somewhere that they argue that it's a security concern. Well, you know what? If we're not secure on an American Airlines flight or a United flight, why would we think they should be more secure than we are? You can bring bodyguards with you on airplanes too, but they don't fly commercial, which is the equivalent of carpooling, because they're rank hypocrites, Ed. They don't live what they don't practice what.
This is David Tulis, and we love Mike Gallagher. We are appreciative of him being here. He's my stand-in on the national side when I, your host, David Tulis, am prepossessed by other duties and other obligations. This is the Nooga Radio David Tulis Show, and we're at AM 1240, FM 92.7. When the great French philosopher and historian de Tocqueville was in the United States, he came back to France and wrote I think in French, maybe in English, his great Democracy in America book, and he pointed out there that charity among Americans was extraordinary. There were charitable efforts for everything, and he saw there was no real government at that time in the 1830s. You never saw an officer. You never even heard about Washington or your state capital. You were a really free people, and flourishing among Americans were charitable enterprises of every kind for flood victims, fire victims, the sick, the infirm, the insane. Now, in this tradition, we have a family here in Chattanooga, the Santhosh Matthews family. Santhosh and his wife Susan have children, and one of them, their first child, was in utero and found to have grievous defects in the body that God was forming for him there in the womb. And they were advised, this family was advised to do a grievous and ugly and wicked thing, and that advice was reinforced. And we're going to hear now what happened to Philip and what has come from his struggle for normalcy, for physical normalcy, and a deadline that is just ahead for the Matthews family and their ministry, which is called Love Without Reason, formed here in the Chattanooga area in 2007. Santhosh, welcome to the program. Tell my listener what the deadline is for just a few days from now.
Thank you, David. Appreciate that. We are in the process of going to Zimbabwe, Africa, to do surgeries for 60 children in 6 days, and we are leaving on June the 7th, and we have to raise almost $100,000 to get this process done. We are 3/4 of the way there, and we've got just a few more, dollars to raise.
Well, what kind of surgery is being done? What's the program in Zimbabwe in the next few days?
What we plan to do craniofacial surgeries, mostly cleft lip and cleft palate surgeries. As you know, children with facial deformities, they are stigma, they are ostracized, humiliated. Most of them are not allowed to, live in the society. So the surgeries are going to, help them with, transforming their faces. Children with open palate will not be able to speak, so we want to help them speak. So that's what we want to do, yeah.
Now, your son, Philip, though, had many surgeries. Is a single surgery enough in the case of most of these children to prosper them for God's glory?
No. Philip has been through 23 surgeries, all of them done here by Dr. Sargent. No, just fixing the lip is not enough. You got to go beyond that and help fix the palate. And then there's the cleft alveolus, there is orthognathic, there is just a whole plethora of surgeries that need to be done.
Now, I'm holding here for our viewer on YouTube at the Hot News Talk radio channel and also on Facebook at New York Radio, a big postcard, a photograph of Philip Matthews, and it's from 2013, showing him, he's now 17 years old, showing him as an infant and the advance of progressive surgeries on his face. And all. So tell a little bit about Philip's into this world, Santhosh.
We were pregnant with our first son, and we went to the doctor's office, and they did a scan on him, on my wife. And when they did the scan, they found out that this child has got so many deformities, and they told us that this child will be born dead because of it. We found out that the child had a cleft lip and a cleft palate, did not have an eye, did not have a ear. We were told that there were so many holes in his heart. And the doctor told us that all that is okay, but the child does not have a stomach, and therefore this child will be born dead. And so we literally were told to abort this baby. But being people of faith, we decided not to. We held on to our faith. We went home and we started to pray. We met several doctors. They all said the same thing, that Philip will be born dead. However, after much prayer and God spoke to us from the Word. I think the Bible is not just a book of literature. It is a living Word, and it actually came alive in our lives. God spoke to us through the book of Jeremiah, chapter 18, and told us about the potter. How a potter makes a pot out of clay, and the clay gets messed up in the hands of the potter. But the potter does not throw that clay away; he makes it into a new vessel. And that's what we believed, and we started to pray. And when we went back to the doctor's office after meeting with several specialists, they did another scan and they found the baby's stomach. And this is when the doctor said, you know what, I told you before that this baby will be born dead because he does not have a stomach and because of all the other complications. But now I'm changing that report. He's going to be born alive. And so Philip was born alive in July 27, 2000. And as you see on the webcam, that's how he used to look like. He had, and the day after he was born, we were told that his corpus callosum is missing, and therefore he won't be able to walk or talk or communicate like the other children. The prognosis was really, really bad. We were faced with a child having severe facial deformities, major heart problems, and also mental and developmental issues.
Now, the Matthews have a GoFundMe page. It's at gofundme.com/cleft surgeries, 4, Africa, gofundme.com/cleft surgeries, 4, Africa. And that's at also lovewithoutreason.org. What do you mean? What does it mean to say love without reason? What is that? What is the idea or the argument of that name?
When my wife and I came up with this name, we saw how people treated children with facial deformities. We also had this idea about human trafficking victims. We want to help them. We realized that the ministry that God is calling us to was among people who are the least loved. Anyone with a facial deformity is immediately, people do not look at them in the face. They can't love them. It's hard to love people like that. So what the ministry that we founded was, when we said love without reason, there's only one that can love without reason, and that's our Lord Jesus Christ. And we completely believe in that. And so we had to, so that's how that name came in, love without reason.
So in other words, your ministry reflects God's love. God loves his children without there being anything within them that makes them meritorious or deserving of his love and favor and his grace. In fact, they're his enemies.
Right.
They're born in sin, and they are rebels against God's government and against God's grace. And yet he says, I'm going to love you, and I'm going to love you, and I'm going to love you without reason. There's no internal reason.
Absolutely no reason.
And that's the Christian message.
Yes.
You're suggesting.
Yes, sir.
Well, all right. So talk a bit more about Zimbabwe. How are these children treated in Zimbabwe? What record and what evidence do you have that they are truly abused and not dealt with charitably in that country?
Well, I want you, as listeners, to understand that, Zimbabwe is a beautiful country. I mean, we've been there about 3 or 4 times struggling economically, and there are issues going on there. However, the people in Zimbabwe, as far as the children with facial deformities are concerned, there is no way to treat them. There are hardly 2 craniofacial surgeons in Zimbabwe. And that's it for the entire country, if you can imagine that. There are a few organizations that go from the US to help them with facial surgeries, but that's nowhere enough. We found out that there is more than a 5-year backlog for children with facial deformities in Zimbabwe. 5-year backlog. That means these children who have not had their surgery. I told you before, a child with the cleft palate open, this child will not be able to speak if his surgery is not done within 15 to 18 months of age. So if you're talking about a 5-year backlog, you can just imagine how many children are faced with these problems in Zimbabwe.
So they will be mutes their whole lives because they could not be given surgery early enough.
Absolutely. Even though maybe not mutes, but their speech is heavily hampered, and they can't speak like how Philip can do. Yeah.
Well, we'd like to hear now from Philip. Philip, you are a student. You are 17 years old, and you are a student at Macaulay, and you've had many surgeries. You've been under anesthesia many times, and you have an unusual perspective. Tell my listener about yourself and how it is that God, through surgeons and through loving parents, redeemed you from death and has built you in character and soul and even body. Even though it's a little hunched, you have character and soul and body, reflecting God's image to everyone you meet. What is it like to be at Macaulay? What are you trying to accomplish there, and what are your plans?
Well, I love Macaulay a lot. It's a really good school because I have really good friends there. They treat me very, very well. I'm feeling very, very comfortable there as well. And yeah.
Well, when do you graduate, and what do you plan to do when you're done?
I'm graduating in 2019. I'm still kind of wavering on what to do.
Do you have favorite authors or favorite things you do in your free time?
I love watching football games. I'm a big Titans fan, a big Volunteers fan, also a Mock fan.
Well, your parents are involved in a ministry in India, their home country, where your dad was born, and it deals with slavery and the slave trade. There are 60 slaves that your father tells me about that come to worship at a little hall that's rented inside of a brothel. There's an unusual place been carved out by God's grace in this den of iniquity where the women are enslaved. They're not free to go. What is the problem of slavery? Tell us about slavery. What do you understand about that in general, and why is there slavery still among people in the 21st century?
Well, it's different than what it was before and after the Civil War, but this kind of slavery deals with women and girls and boys like my age being abused, whether it's through forced child labor or organ harvesting or sex trafficking.
So you mean to say in India there's a slavery where young people are kept for their kidneys or their one lung, say? Or?
Yeah, they're fed very, very well, and if then maybe one day out of the bloom they're shot, and the pimp, so-called, they come and they take out the organs. Or
the person is shot and killed, you're saying, or just given a shot?
The children with facial deformities, they are sold as organ donors, so to speak, because their face is messed up, everything else is good. But yeah.
Well, Philip, go ahead. Tell me more about this.
About
the idea of slavery. We have slavery still in different countries. Why? All right, so you have your organ donor slaves. They're and you're saying some of these young people they have these deformities, so are they in the lowest caste in India, or just
Yeah.
Where do they stand as far as their caste?
Well, they're mainly in the lower class because their parents are so poor, and they will do anything. They'll even sell their child into slavery, into that forced child labor, so that they sometimes they view a child as maybe like more than like another mouth to feed, and so that's one reason why they sold them. Another reason why is because the person who's trying to buy the child will say, "Oh, I have your child will have a great success. He'll bring you back money. He'll have a great job," and they trick the parent.
And so the parent, the mom or the dad, in financial desperation, sells their child.
Yeah.
But the brothel keeper, the den mistress, or the pimp really views that child just as an object, right? There's no human connection. What was that the option offered to your parents while you were in your mother's womb? That child in the womb is just an object. You don't have to view that embryo and that unborn child as a human being. You can destroy that child without a moral consequences. Is that the same perspective, do you think?
There has been a huge opposition to me for me, but I don't think it's that way.
But your parents did not agree with the doctor's assessment. Well, this is David Tulis. We're talking with Santhosh Matthews and his son Philip. They're raising money for a trip to Zimbabwe, a medical mercy trip, and they're trying to raise thousands of dollars. And here's where you need to go to find out more. Go to GoFundMe.com, GoFundMe.com/cleft surgeries, #4 Africa. Cleft surgeries for Africa. And please, my listener, the man who matters here on the David Tulis program, make a generous donation to get these parents and their doctors ready to serve 60 children in the course of 6 days in Zimbabwe.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
IBuyChattanoogaHouses.com, Chattanooga's premier house buyer. Do you have a house you need to sell fast? We're buying. Call us today. We are local folks. We will buy your house as is, no repairs needed. We will give you a cash offer and close on the day of your choice. Call us right now, 423-834-7321. Need to sell a house fast? We are buying. Are you experiencing one of these situations? Inherited a house you have no need for? Behind on your property taxes? Nightmare tenants making your life miserable? Too many repairs needed and don't have a desire to fix? Behind on payments and facing foreclosure? Recently divorced and need a way out of the house? Never really wanted to be a landlord and just want to cash out? Trying to relocate and need to sell your house? Do you need to sell a house fast? We are buying. No fees, no hassles, no repair costs. Close on the day of your choice. Our process is simple. Call us today. We inspect your property right away. We make you a fair cash offer. We close on the day of your choice. Call us today, 423-834-7321. Visit our website, IBuyChattanoogaHouses.com. Call us today, 423-834-7321. IBuyChattanoogaHouses.com. He stole out so much cash, such a huge mountain of cash, that he's become a national star. Rick Davis. You know the story. Cash, 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 and more cash. People can't believe it. They want to see it. And now Rick Davis has a new TV show. National TV, USA and Canada. He's got the gold and silver, diamonds and rings. You get dizzy just thinking about it. Rick's selling. Rick's buying. Cash, 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 and more cash. And now a mountain of cash catching the Hollywood spotlight. You know where it is, Brainerd Road. Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. Cash, 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 and national TV cash. That's really big. Everyone wants to see it. Money flying out the door. Rick Davis is America's jeweler. It's better than Hollywood. It's right here. Cash, 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 and more cash. Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. Brainerd Road.
You love me. You really love me.
Are you shovel ready to build a house, but you're not a builder? Are you shovel ready, Michael's Homes is ready to bulldoze its way to a solution for you. You have ideas on what you want in a house, but you're looking for someone to bring your ideas into a plan and turn your plan into a house. Michael's Homes, custom builder. Michael's Homes has lots available at a new subdivision, River Bay Estates, that's Harrison. Maybe River Watch in Saudi Daisy. Choices galore, lots, houses, beautiful homes all over Chattanooga. The Canyons, Hickson. Crystal Brook, Appleton. Drive in, take a look, consult with us. We build on your lot or ours. Homes-Chattanooga.com.
Call 423-413-9929.
It is Eric Jones hard into the outside wall, and they are still 3 and 4 wide. It looks like we're racing at Talladega.
Caution flag is out. It looked like Denny Hamlin was trying to get by Ricky Stenhouse. Got into the back of Ricky at the line. Man, that's a close one. Matt Kenseth wins stage 1.
Green checkered flag is out, and Brad Keselowski has won stage 2.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. into the wall. That will bring out the caution. Caution waving once again. And again, it's Dale Earnhardt Jr. involved.
Oh, trouble. Ty Dillon has gotten turned to the inside of the racetrack, and Clint Boyer has just nailed him.
Matt Kenseth falling back, the field storming by. Something wrong. Now we see sparks from Kenseth's Toyota.
Larson chops him off. Coming off turn number 2. Nose to tail. Now it's Logano to the high side in 3.
Joey Logano, a winner here at the Richmond International Raceway. Hear it live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
The voice of NASCAR.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
WBLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga, WSDT Saudi Daisy Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Peter King. A lackluster jobs report from the government shows U.S. companies pulling back on hiring last month. CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger.
The job market is slowing down, especially in the last 3 months. Average job creation over the course of these 3 months, 121,000. That's much lighter than we would expect at this point in the cycle.
The Labor Department says unemployment dropped 0.1% in May, but
this drop stemmed because people left the labor force rather than an increase in the number of people who actually found work. So, in other words, the rate dropped for the wrong reason.
The Justice Department has asked the Supreme Court to reinstate the Trump administration's travel ban for 6 predominantly Muslim countries. CBS News senior legal analyst Andrew Cohen says not much has changed since lower courts blocked the ban.
The feds are making essentially the same arguments they've been making for months, the same arguments that have been losing in the lower federal courts, that the ban is legal, that the court should defer to the president on national security and immigration, and that all the discriminatory talk of a Muslim ban is irrelevant to the legal analysis.
So the president is getting backup from his cabinet and vice president after the pullout from Paris Climate Accords, but criticism from the outside has been widespread. Sierra Club Executive Director Mike Bruin says his organization is fighting back.
We're building an alliance with mayors, with governors, with prime ministers, with corporate CEOs, with scientists, with teachers who believe that we can actually fight climate change and create broad prosperity.
Hundreds are still being treated after this week's bombing that killed 90 people in Kabul. And a demonstration there this morning turned violent as police fired at rock-throwing protesters who want better security. Several demonstrators are killed, with 4 officers injured. Fired FBI Director James Comey will tell at least part of his story to the Senate Intelligence Committee next Thursday. A possible roadblock may be unlikely. CBS's Stephen Portnoy.
The hearing set for Thursday is on track to be one of Washington's most highly anticipated events in years. But there's a lingering question as to whether the White House might try to block James Comey's testimony. It would be a novel application of executive privilege, since Comey actually wants to share what Mr. Trump said about the FBI's investigation into former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. A senior White House advisor says a decision to invoke the privilege would be up to the president, but that aides here do intend to watch Comey's testimony.
The White House is moving ahead with a rule that could end contraceptive coverage for hundreds of thousands of women. CBS's Jim Taylor.
It is a sweeping revision of the government's contraception coverage mandate, greatly increasing the number of employers qualifying for exemptions from the mandate by claiming a moral or religious objection. Your boss doesn't like that you're on birth control. You may find that it's no longer covered by insurance. Democrats call it a sickening plan to roll back women's access to contraception. As the New York Times points out, it could go into effect as soon as it's published in the Federal Register. Jim Taylor, CBS News.
The Dow is up 7. This is CBS News.
Are you looking for senior care for your mom or dad but don't know where to start? Hi, I'm Jen London with A Place for Mom. Nobody knows your parent or loved one better than you, and nobody knows senior living better than the experts at A Place for Mom. It's a free service, and we've helped thousands of families find the right place for their mom or dad. There's a place for answers, a place for mom. Call today.
Call A Place for Mom at 1-800-379-1174. That's 1-800-379-1174.
Do you have acne or even the occasional breakout? With prescription-grade Proactive Plus, your acne can heal and you can prevent future breakouts. Try Proactive Plus 100% risk-free. Plus, get 2 free gifts and free shipping. Take it from me, Proactive really works. Get prescription-grade Proactive Plus, their amazing skin purifying mask, and a second gift of your choice. Totally free and free shipping. You're guaranteed to get clear and stay clear, or you don't pay a penny. Call now, 800-281-8770. 800-281-8770.
The Ariana Grande benefit for Manchester is sold out quickly, but as CBS's Larry Miller reports, there's also a dark side to the quick sale.
More than 10,000 scammers tried to get free tickets to Sunday's Manchester charity concert reserved for fans at the Ariana Grande event hit by a suicide bomber. Online agency Ticketmaster blocked those it describes as unscrupulous, opportunists, and scalpers. Proceeds from the Love Manchester concert will go to the wounded and the families of those killed. Among those performing, Grande, Katy Perry, Coldplay, and Justin Bieber. $50 tickets sold out in less than 20 minutes. Some are being offered online for 5 times that. Larry Miller, CBS News, London.
Prince William has met with police officers who responded to the bombing to thank them for their help. One of the men he spoke to was a 47-year-old constable who treated the wounded even as he was frantically looking for his own daughter. The pair were reunited later. I'm Peter King, CBS News.
Attention.
After this briefly mild start, expect lots of sunshine and very warm weather for your Friday. Afternoon highs back into the upper 80s tonight. Fair lows 62 to 65 for Saturday. More sunshine, still mainly dry highs, upper 80s with a few late day showers and storms on Sunday. Celebrate the savings at JCPenney with great deals on select items, on pillows, tanks for her, and stylish shorts for him and her. That's getting your pennies worth at JCPenney. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core.
On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
A 4-vehicle collision and an explosion in Marion County has claimed the lives of 2. Lieutenant John Harmon with the Tennessee Highway Patrol says it happened at 2:10 a.m. A commercial motor vehicle crossed over the median and smashed into another commercial vehicle, causing an explosion on 24 westbound. Tennessee Volunteer Fire Department Training Center was burglarized on Highway 58, but the items that were stolen were $30,000 worth of training equipment. The police say it's really only useful as training equipment. They're not sure what the burglar is going to do with it. Police say Hunter Hanks, an 18-year-old, is accused of breaking into 4 vehicles and stealing money and other items out of them on Grace Avenue at a gated community. Hanks was caught after a suspicious activity call was reported to the police at 911. They found Mr. Hanks and asked him to raise his hands out of his pockets. That's when they spotted a handgun on his hip. Cops say a search revealed multiple cell phones and multiple wallets. He was arrested. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio. Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
Inflation is between 3 and 6 times what the official rate is. We're hearing in the press continually how the Fed is trying to reach a target of 2% inflation per year. But it's actually much, much more than that. If you look at the burrito index, that says burritos are 160% what they were, though they should only be maybe 8 or 9 or 10 or 15% more. It's much, much higher in many areas. The price increases. Now we shouldn't really talk about price increases. We should talk about the measure being of the declining power, the plunging market power of your paper currency. It is Cash Friday today, and we celebrate the advantages of having a depreciating medium of exchange that brought to us by the banking system and by the national government that the Confederates fought. Remember, the Confederates, whose heroes are being lowered in Louisiana. That centralized system of opposition collapsed, having committed the same sins as its rival in Washington. 800-8949. 800-8949 is me here, David Tulis, in the studio of Nooga Radio, AM 1240, FM 92.7. And the burrito index says that inflation, again, is really much higher than we're led to believe, where say university education back in 2004 was $5,600. Now it's $13,900, according to Charles Hugh Smith, one of my favorite writers. I'm all Charles Hugh Smith today, and it's just he just kind of piled himself onto my notice. Our money is losing its purchasing power really much faster than the good people would like us to believe. It's in Hawaii, for example, 2004 in-state tuition $4,400, and 2016 in-state tuition $10,800. So that's 2.5 times the official rate there, the official rate of inflation over that period of time. Officially, say in the medical field, where you have 12,000, you have, let's see, what am I trying to say here? According to official inflation calculations, the $12,200 annual medical cost for a family of 4 in 2005 should cost around $15,000 today. But, well, oops, it's more like $25,000, $10,800 higher than official inflation. You add that up, you get $100,000 here and $100,000 there. It doesn't matter to the national elites who are giving us this national economy narrative, but it matters to us a lot here in local economy in Chattanooga and in Hamilton County, because here we are the victims of this banking sector. Don't forget, the banking sector is the only industry that can make money from nothing. And yet in 2007 and 8, we had to have TARP, which was a $100 billion save the industry that could make money. We had to save it by injections of taxpayer money and federal loans borrowed on future tax receipts. That's the goal. That's the means future tax payments are able to be claimed, is that we know we've got this tax revenue, and we'll be able to pay off all this debt, passing 20 trillion paper dollars eventually. Now, of course, you know, and I know that the good people will not pay back their loans. They will not be paid back. The burden of keeping up appearances, keeping up the appearance that, in fact, they are making these payments and are whittling down their deficits and their debt, is inflation. And that is to say, the making of new money, new debt, new credit, and all solutions that we are hearing about boil down to free money. That's what we have. And the only way we can have at least the simulacrum of free money, at least the appearance, right, of free money, is an artificially suppressed low rate of interest, overseen by the cheerleader grandma Yellen, who does not want to reduce the flow from the liquor tap that's keeping the bowls at the wild party just full with intoxicants. There's a story in Nashville that we need to consider, and it brings to view the Department of Children's Services, DCS, out of Nashville, run by this is an agency that serves Governor Haslam, a Republican, an agency that is involved in, I would like to suggest, mass kidnappings. There are 6,000 children in state custody in Tennessee. Probably most of them seized from their parents apart from lawful process, though court orders figure in every one of those. You have court orders that seem to legitimize these seizures. And yet, as Channel 4 Nashville reports, WSMV, there is room for doubt. Now, that the story, the most recent story at that TV station out of Nashville suggests that, well, there was a court order, and a court order can't be given unless there's a cause. I mean, that's the way the reporter presented it. But we're talking about Stephen Rivenberg Jr. He's an infant who had very serious problems at birth, and he faces a death sentence in state custody on Monday when a judge's order to keep him alive expires. And here in Chattanooga, the only outlet that has covered this is TV3, which again, WRCB TV shows good news judgment in, at the very least, having the story on its website. I don't know if it has aired before TV, the few thousand people who are part of the TV audience, but it is at least on the website, and that's why I do my search for important news there. The boy is 7 months old. His name is Stephen Rivenberg, and he's on life support at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. The parents are Trish Tornberg and Stephen Rivenberg, and they give an interview. It's online about this boy who has Down syndrome, and he has a congenital heart disease. And he had no other problems other than those, which were serious enough, until he was seized in February and put into the state's custody through some hired non-related parents. He got a virus, and he needs a heart transplant, doctors say. And the family says that this is what they would like to have done. The grandmother, Lisa Rivenberg, says, "I love him very much, and I want him back." The boy is scheduled to be taken off life support unless the judge renews the order, which was about a week's duration. Stephen Jr. is in the care of the state, the story says. His parents said DCS took him because they felt his medical needs were being neglected. So here it is. Here's the state has a solution. Just as the state is going to come into Chattanooga and solve the problem of the 5 rotten public schools. And with the objection, or facing the objection of State Representative Joanne Favors, rightly so. Here we have a family crisis, and the state breaks apart the family. The state breaks apart the family, assuming the worst, right? That's always what happens when the state seizes children under a judge's order. An allegation is made. It's just an allegation and an appearance of proof, right? There's no prima facie evidence of neglect, but there's just the appearance of it. And so not having the facts, but having an accusation and having doubts, right? Doubts which stand on the honorable base of care for the child gives the state the authority to accuse these parents before the judge. And then the judge ordering the seizure of the child. The couple admits that they had to reschedule a doctor's appointment 3 times because of transportation problems from Clarksville. So that's their answer. It's hard for there to be there for our son when we are being treated like criminals. And that is the story. And I'd like to suggest that this is just it looks like an odd story. It's in the news because it's different, right? And it has coverage because it's something different. That's what news is. News does not cover the state of affairs. It always covers the thing that's unusual. That's why the newspaper and the news, TV news, even other platforms can't be counted on to describe things as they really are. For that, you have to read books, right? You really can't see these things if you rely just on daily coverage. John Hauser is the chief communications officer of Vanderbilt Medical Center, refuses to provide any information, of course. And he says, at Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital, he gives the full name, each child is cared for maximally through the utmost abilities and resources offered in this region, he says. Medical decisions about children are entrusted to our care are made in collaboration with their parents. Well, again, that all sounds good, and it sounds that Vanderbilt is not taking the side of the kidnapper, but really cares about the parent and cares about the child as a member of that family. You know, you're a member of a family before you're a citizen, and yet the state, having assumed this child is a citizen, is intervening. Intervention always breeds intervention. It does not ever breed independence, and we are the poorer for it. And I'd like to think that we are people who are going to prosper apart from interventions of the state, but it's hard really to do. And I think there's a great ennui among the people in Hamilton County and Chattanooga. There's a great indifference. People feel that there's nothing they can do. Things are the way they are, and because we have public school, we have a media, which are all about saying the way things are and not ever suggesting that that the status quo is wrong, that the status quo violates essential claims by God upon the human race. That there's nothing out of place, right? There's nothing heterodox in the way reality is lived and the way we see it. There's nothing out of the norm, right? There's nothing a kilter. Nothing is at an angle. Everything is straight as it should be. And because there's this rejection of any kind of external standard, we can't see really what the problems are, and we really don't know how to get out of it. And so that's why I'd like to think that there's this ennui, this indifference. People feel hopeless. They feel that there's nothing they can do. Things just are the way they are. There's not enough money. People don't have enough income. Families all across Chattanooga are living on the edge. There are not resources for car repairs that are needed. The roof repairs on the house are way overdue, 6 or 7 years overdue. The driveway needs maintenance, but it's not going to, the potholes in that driveway, they're just going to have to stay there for a long time. We don't have savings. We don't have retirement. We don't have cash in a box somewhere in our house. We don't have gold and silver investments, no mutual funds, no checks coming in from dividend payments, digital transfer from, say, Computer Source, the trading house for dividend payments, or other. We don't have those things. We're just living paycheck to paycheck, and the wife works, the husband works, or if it's a house where there's just a woman, divorcee, she has custody because she was the victim, as it were, in the divorce, and a no-fault divorce. She couldn't, in that divorce, she couldn't claim, she couldn't really make claims, though she has claims on her husband's gross receipts through the court, and he's behind, but he's in jail. He's in jail because he hasn't kept up, and he can't make payments even to cover his own expenses, much less give money for the children. So there's a broken family, and the state has intervened, making things even worse, as in the Rivenburg story. That is something out of Nashville, but that kind of intrusion is very, very common, and we are the victims of centralization in many ways. We've been converted from individual men and women into consumers and into subjects. We're really concerned about self-government. I think the idea of self-government is truly alien. And that's why, because I, David Tulis, your host here at the David Tulis program, believe in self-government, that allows me to say that we here at Nooga Radio are a pro-government platform. We're a very pro-government media platform, and I want that to be on the record. I'm pro-government, very, very pro-government. There are people who one could say are anti-government, and they're the ones who are operators of the state itself. The anti-government people are the ones who run the state. They don't believe in government. They don't believe that families should take care of their own problems and solve their medical crises alone. They believe that if there's something in which they can intervene to show their courage, right, to show their virtue, their care for the individual, that they're going to break up a family that, by all appearances, is doing its very best to care for their infant. And you can see a photograph of him lying in a bed. He's got a little diaper on. He's got his chest covered with tubes and breathing supports taped to his frenny limb, little hoses going into his nose. And that is a child that is in the hands of the state. The state being a totally impersonal machine. It is totally impersonal. It is an administrative law, and it is inhuman. It can't possibly be human. You talk about corporations and how they are inhuman, and how with the rise of the corporation, we have the rise of big government, and there is a cause and effect. There is a relationship between those two risings. This is David Tulis, and it's Cash Friday today. On Cash Friday, we look at the benefits of decentralization, and I know it's just a kind of a false story. It's a bit of a joke where we say if we get out a couple $100 from our bank, we are declaring our independence. It's funny, and I think the good people are laughing at us because they say, well, the money you're getting out of the bank is one of our bills, right? It's one of our pieces of paper, and that is true. It is that we are drawing out a green rectangle, which is a Federal Reserve note. And we're going to talk with Paul Hein, the author of one of my favorite books, All Work and No Pay, about this very phenomenon of people, the good people who can make wealth from nothing, make promises to pay. But the $50 bill times 2 that you draw out of the bank is really, in a way, it seems like a fraud because it purports to represent a claim of some kind. And yet, if you have 2 pieces of paper with 50 on them, it gives you no claim at all to 100 of anything, right? It suggests 100. 100 what? Well, $100. Well, what's a dollar? You see, we've completely forgotten about what that is. And so we're just, that's why, because we can't think through these, that's why we believe in magic. We believe that there are hard situations ahead. There are crises ahead. We can't really identify them. We don't know how to describe them. We don't know why they have to be there and what method they operate against us and against our employer, against our capital, against our savings. We don't really know that. And so we live, because we don't have an understanding. We live kind of in the world of magic. Bad things happen to us. We're not sure why and how. Good things may happen to us if we buy a lottery ticket, or just work harder, or just don't say anything. Maybe we'll avoid bad things if we just don't say anything. If we don't object to abuse by one high power against a common person. There's a lot of abuse by high powers of common people. Those high powers representing the state. The state, in many ways, has become the enemy, and you're much more likely to be killed by a state actor, probably 7 to 15 times more likely to be killed. That is to say, slain, right, unceremoniously slain by a state actor, than you are by a Muslim faithful radical who's taking his jihad out on the great Satan and his emissaries. What we look forward to is a world of self-determination. That's my goal. That's why I'm pro-government. With government, namely self-government, we will eventually, I think, bring about a world where there are many smaller units, fewer large, gigantic, ungovernable units such as the United States, but many smaller ones. We'll have city-states. We'll have little countries carving themselves out of broken, bankrupt states such as Tennessee. Connecticut will be, look at the high debt states, Connecticut, California. Some of these states are in insolvency. Ohio, they are broke, and they've made public pension promises to their people for decades, paid for, of course, by taxpayers. And these systems are going to break. They're going to break down. And the ballooning of debt across the globe, even here in the United States, that ballooning of debt will not solve our problems. There's a great little essay at LouRockwell.com this morning, which you might want to look at. It says we should prefer states' rights to federalization of the U.S. and cheer for the breakup of the EU. We should support breakaway movements in places like Catalonia and Scotland, provided that they're not, he says, founded by states or spy agencies. We should admire the Swiss federalist system where localism is a governing principle. We should favor local control over faraway legislatures and administrative bodies, and thus reject multilateral trade deals. And as President Trump has done, multilateral environmental pacts, or that may not be an actual treaty. It may just be a convention. There's a difference. And Jeff Deist says, can a small local state be equally or more illiberal than a large distant one? Of course, although history often demonstrates otherwise. But the von Misesian principle remains: the best chance for liberty occurs under rules made by the smallest and closest possible administrative unit to the individual. So in other words, if there's to be a benefit and a reform, it has to be lococentric. It has to come here and come from here, and it cannot be brought to us by Governor Haslams and administrative agencies. Here's a list of words that really tell the story of where you need to think. Decentralization, cessation, subsidiarity, localism, and nullification, he says, are the tools for greater self-determination and thus greater liberty. These tools are not universalist platitudes, should be the stock and trade of libertarians trying to make a case for a freer world. And that's what I'm doing here. David Tulis at Nooga Radio. I've got some very important announcements. Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
A four-vehicle collision and an explosion in Marion County has claimed the lives of two. Lieutenant John Harmon with the Tennessee Highway Patrol says it happened at 2:10 a.m. A commercial motor vehicle crossed over the median and smashed into another commercial vehicle, causing an explosion on 24 westbound. Tennessee Volunteer Fire Department Training Center was burglarized on Highway 58, but the items that were stolen were $30,000 worth of training equipment. The police say it's really only useful as training equipment, and they're not sure what the burglar is going to do with it. Police say Hunter Hanks, an 18-year-old, is accused of breaking into 4 vehicles and stealing money and other items out of them on Grace Avenue at a gated community. Hanks was caught after a suspicious activity call was reported to the police at 911. They found Mr. Hanks and asked him to raise his hands out of his pockets. That's when they spotted a handgun on his hip. Cops say a search revealed multiple cell phones and multiple wallets. He was arrested. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
After this briefly mild start, expect lots of sunshine and very warm weather for your Friday afternoon. Highs back into the upper 80s tonight. Fair lows 62 to 65 for Saturday. More sunshine, still mainly dry highs, upper 80s with a few late day showers and storms on Sunday. Celebrate the savings at JCPenney with great deals on select items, on pillows, tanks for stylish shorts for him and her. That's getting your pennies worth at JCPenney. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core.
On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
I have the best steak selection in town. Name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
When my brother and I opened the first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300-plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and 1 topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
I've got a $10 bill for you at the best paint store in Chattanooga. David here. Hi. Big savings right now on paint and stains. Chattanooga Paint and Decorating. More than a paint store. Ring up a can and keep that $10 bill. Save on select paints and stains at Chattanooga Paint and Decorating. More than a paint store. Pittsburgh, Porter, Glidden, Prolux, Olympic, Flood. $10 a can. Savings this week. Jim and his team are here to help and advise and to help you hold on to your money. 5529 Hickson Pike. Chattanooga Paint and Decorating. ChattanoogaPaint.com.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is the field lines failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341, 421-6341.
Competent, kind, caring, knowledgeable, experienced, great listener, great negotiator, in touch, accessible. If these are the characteristics you want and need in a realtor, you want and need Thomas DeMoss of Keller Williams Realty. Thomas is a very gifted realtor who puts the client's needs first. Whether you're buying or selling a home, Thomas is the realtor of choice. Thomas will help and guide you through each step of this very important process. For many of us, the purchase of a home is one of our largest investments and most important family and financial decision. Let Thomas use his 10 years of experience in the Chattanooga real estate market to give you the advantage you need when buying or selling a home. Buying a house? Thomas can help you navigate the emotional and somewhat anxious process of buying a home. For those of you who want to sell a house, Thomas uses his marketing and negotiating experience to help you sell your home for top dollar. Thomas is a local resident raising his family here in Hamilton County. He knows the area very well. For many agents, real estate is a job. With Thomas DeMoss, it's a passion and what he loves to do. Call Thomas today for a no-obligation consultation. He makes the process as simple as possible. Call 423-364-0028 and visit his website, northriverpropertygroup.com.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us. Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me. Action Rentals.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree? Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio. Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
We argue here at Nooga Radio that near is better than far, small than big, and simple than complex. And part two of the lococentric, Nooga-centric argument for local economy and the free market is in the footnotes. Now, even there, the good people will fight against us. They will draw their swords. They will take out their pikes and mount their steeds to make battle against us, to strike our helmets off our heads and deliver the decapitating blow if they could. But we are fighting back, and we're mobile and fleet and small and have many advantages. And we would fight back by saying, hey, personal is better than corporate and physical is better than abstract. That's in the footnotes at 5-point type. And we insist on all the points being made. There are 5 of them. And I say 3 in footnotes because ordinarily, if you're writing a legal brief, you should always have just 3 points, not more. You don't make an argument with 25 parts. No one will grasp it. You have to simplify to the 3 main arguments. And then if there are footnotes, well, then you can, of course, put these other arguments in, though they have equal value to the first 3. This is David Tulis, and we are arguing for local economy and the free market. It is Cash Friday, and on this day, you, my listener, and I, both of us, we go to our bank and draw out $100, as they call them, in either $100 bill or here, as I have in my hand, for the viewer on YouTube at Hot News Talk Radio, and the other viewer on Facebook. I'm holding 2 $50 bills with the fine signature of. Or the fine face, the fine mugshot of General and then President Grant on the front. And we do that because we want to strike out. We want to show that we're independent. We also want to honor the great ones of our country, the invader, of course, as Grant was, and George Washington and President Lincoln, all these people, Hamilton. We want to just celebrate their great strength and honor them by looking at their mugshots as we do our commerce. But there is, of course, a danger if somebody else, if a third person gets out $100 from the banking system, there may be warning memos that go down to the Federal Reserve System in Atlanta. Maybe an armored car will have to come up with a couple of $100 bills inside to cover the illiquidity that bold step might cause. And yet it is just in fun that we do this, drawing out that $100. But there is some measure of liberty. We need that money. I think, as Dr. Paul Hein will talk to us about. We need that money because we need to spend it now. It seems to be going down in value very quickly. Prices seem to be going up. Dr. Hein, when prices are going up, what is the story of prices going up in, say, the medical field or college field, things like that? Why are things getting so expensive?
Well, some things are getting more expensive, but most things only seem to be getting more expensive, Mr. Tulis, because there's no way of measuring how much they cost without any kind of standard of monetary value.
Well, explain that. I'm mystified.
Well, okay, let me give you a personal explanation here, which will take a minute or two. When I first started into practice, I charged $350 to remove a person's cataract because the older physician I had been with for a few years charged that amount, and it seemed to be fine. No one was complaining, and when I did it, no one was complaining, and there was no great need, as far as I was aware of at the time, for any kind of federal insurance program for health. But $350 back in 1964 meant that I could go to the bank with what I received from my patients, which was usually a check, and obtain $350 of silver, those heavy silver coins. The checks and currency could ultimately be converted into a form of currency which was convertible, so you could actually get 350 silver dollars for my $350 fee. Over the years, the fee for cataract surgery has gone up. My wife had her cataracts removed recently, and I'm not sure exactly what it costs because there's so many third parties interfering. By the time you get the bill for Medicare, mark, do not pay this, pay this. You don't know what you're talking about. But I think the fee was around $1,200. Now, that was for a much more sophisticated operation than we were doing in 1964. But if the surgeon took his $1,200 payment and went to buy silver coins with it, he could buy perhaps 40. Now, I received $350 in 1964 for doing a much simpler operation. For his much more sophisticated operation in 2017, he got 40. So is the price of medical care going up? Well, if you measure it in terms of intangible, non-specific units called dollars, yes, it's going way up. If you measure it in terms of some standard, like a silver dollar today is the same as it was in 1964, it's going way down. So we have to have some way of measuring prices if we're going to know whether prices are going up or down. And we don't have any such measurement available to us. No standard exists.
Well, what happened to make that gap appear? Paul Hein, you were the author of All Work and No Pain, Life-Saving Lessons in Modern Money, a book published in Tennessee back in the 1980s. What created the gap?
Money printing, or money creation, because very little of the money that we spend is printed, and most of it is just a book entry in a bank or a computer entry nowadays that we spend by writing checks. And the numbers on those checks don't necessarily correspond to paper money. I mean, there's not nearly enough paper money in circulation to account for all of the numbers in bank accounts. And in terms of gold and silver, well, it's laughable. You might say we have this huge pyramid of money, also known as debt, balanced on a small amount of actual real money, which serves as the multiplier for money on top of everything. So fractional reserve banking is a catastrophe, which I think your Friday program is going to help awaken viewers or listeners to the fact that the whole system is built upon, well, imagination, really, or you might be unkind and say fraud.
Well, you talk about a pyramid, and there's a point. That point, I guess, would be cash that would be created, printed, green rectangles printed by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, all of which have numbers on them ranging from 1 up to 100. Now, that's the largest bill. So that's a base. And on top of that base, you're saying other dollars are created. It's kind of an inverted pyramid, right? The pyramid balancing on
this small, yes,
a small hit of cash.
Small point, yeah.
Well, how disproportionate is that hit of cash to the debt pile? Would you suppose? How would you describe the relation of those two parts? The head, the tip of that pyramid, the upside down pyramid, which is the cash, and the balloon of cash and balloon of credit on top.
Oh, I don't know a number I can give you, Mr. Tulis, but it's gigantic. I mean, I saw a graph the other day of the monetary supply, the money supply in the United States, and for many years it was just inching up slowly, and then in the last few years it's become almost a vertical spike. The growth of money is just exponential. It is frightening, and it should be frightening.
So it would be like saying, okay, the base of the pyramid would be the size of a computer mouse that my listener has in his hand. It is that's the point of the pyramid, and the inverted pyramid is it spreads out and goes up to the top of the 4-story office building in which he's working. So that's a gigantic triangle upside down going up and out, and that's the debt, all premised on the reserve dollars that are in currency, right, or some kind of non-debt instruments.
Yes. The money supply can be multiplied according to a factor or whatever it is. That 10% has to be kept in reserve, and then you can create an additional 90% or so. I don't know how that works out over the years, but it's, as I say, it's an exponential growth of money, and it's leading to the point. I think it's getting there where people are going to find it difficult to take the money seriously. As in, I think I might have mentioned before in Zimbabwe. I think it was Zimbabwe. An American with a $10 bill could purchase $1 billion Zimbabwe dollars. When it gets to that point, it's just ludicrous, and nobody's taking it seriously anymore.
Well,
we're not there. I'm sorry, we're not there yet, but we're getting there.
Is my listener, should he understand himself to be a victim, or is he a participant in this program? Is he a victim of this non-referential currency and pile of debt, or is he a participant?
He's like the shotgun bridegroom, you might say. He's not necessarily happy about the situation, but he doesn't know what he can do to avoid it. I mean, he is working for nothing, as I mentioned in my book, because we don't use anything for money today. Money is not a thing. It's nothing. And that may aggravate him to think that he's spending his life, or at least 40 hours of it every week, for nothing. On the other hand, he knows that these nothing he receives in the form of numbers on paper, he can use to get somebody else's services or goods. So while he may not be happy with the situation, he feels like a victim. He's also part of it because he spends it and gets something for it. So it's an unfortunate situation.
Right. He's in a shotgun wedding, but he does get to sleep with the girl, and maybe her sister, and maybe her niece.
He gets a flat screen television if that's what he wants.
So in a way, so we are, and I think you're right. I was reading Garrett's book, People's Pottage, and he says that the inflationary economy makes people have a stake in the continuation of inflation, and that would be their favor, say, on tax returns for their deduction on their mortgage deduction. Mortgage debt is subsidized by being something you can write off on your tax return if you're liable to file one.
Well, the banks and the government work hand in hand, I think, because the banks, you might say, own the government. They can buy anything they want if they can create money, and the government's a good thing to buy if you have an urge to rule the whole world. And the governments go along with it because the governments can, use the force that the banks cannot at least directly use to achieve their objectives. So, if you play along with the system and don't object, they let you deduct certain things from your income tax return. It's all a question of pitting one thing against another and playing one aspect of the society against another.
If we so we're all participants in it because we're gaining from the depreciation of money, especially if we're debtors. We can pay back in less valued dollars. Well, people talk about the Federal Reserve System and the Federal Reserve Bank as maybe being the bad guy. Ron Paul, the former presidential candidate, and others demand an audit. Is not the Federal Reserve System actually a fabulously rich and wealthy reserve of money? Do we not always have the backstop of the Federal Reserve is the reserve of our country? That it's there to reserve us. It's there to ensure us, to keep us safe, to keep us liquid. Is that a realistic assessment of that institution, Dr. Hein?
No, I don't think so. I don't think the federal bank is federal, and I don't think it has any reserves. It, for instance, has been buying up bonds. I forget what South American country now was buying bonds to support the economy in that country, perhaps because American interests wanted supported there. But those bonds are worthless. No, I don't think the Federal Reserve is anything we can look upon as safeguarding our interests at all.
And I understand that the Federal Reserve System, which is a private bank. It's not really the government. It's owned by a
private cartel.
It's a cartel, and it's owned by member banks and other parties who have not really been examined publicly.
That's right.
And so they're profiteers effectively who have the patina of officiality. They have the patina of approval by having the federal president name the board members, and they have to pass. These board members have to pass Senate approval. And so it looks all very official and very important, and we are in good hands. I would say is the appearance that we're supposed to believe in, Dr. Hein.
Appearance is everything nowadays. Psychology rules.
Well, it is Cash Friday, and I do thank you, my listener, for joining me here. David Tulis at Nooga Radio. We're talking with Dr. Paul Hein from the St. Louis area. He's the author of one of my favorite books. It's called All Work and No Pay. I've been holding it up for our YouTube viewer to see, and it's Dr. Hein, Cash Friday is really just all in fun. I'm telling my listener, get out $100 from the bank, 100 Federal Reserve note equivalents from the bank, and I'll do the same. And we're going to make a statement. How is it that cash is a statement against the ownership by private parties of the national economy and the banking system? How is it humorously defiant, would you suppose?
Well, I'm not sure I understand exactly what you mean, but cash, of course, is really sort of a bedrock. People think of cash as money. The banks lend out much more money than they have cash to redeem it with. And so if everybody went to the bank and withdrew hundreds of dollars in cash, the banks in short shrift would be in a panic because they don't have that much cash on hand. In fact, you can go to a bank sometimes and want to withdraw a few $100s or maybe a few $1,000s in cash, and the tellers are scurrying around trying to find it because most of the money nowadays is just the imaginary stuff that people write on checks. So yeah, it can be frightening for the banking system if enough people did that, and it would also alarm them because they would realize perhaps that people know what's going on and they're catching on to them. So yeah, your ploy there is good. It does provide you with some amusement, but it also awareness of the banking customer and of the banker himself. I think people who work in banks, particularly the tellers, who are often young people who have no recollection of actual money, they don't know what they're doing. I mean, they know the procedures, they know what buttons to press and what slips to put in the machine and so forth, but they don't understand anything about the nature of the banking system any more than the electrician understands about the nature of electricity. So what you're doing there with Cash Friday is a good idea to sort of trigger some awareness in their minds.
You are a Christian, Dr. Hein, and you care about the idea of redemption. How is it that you can scorn this $50 bill I'm holding in my hand for my YouTube viewer? How is it that this bill does not have redemption? It's not a picture of redemption. What's wrong with this piece of paper?
Thou shalt not steal. That's what's wrong with it. I mean, in order to get the $50 bill, someone at some point had to borrow it, because that's the only way our money comes into existence is when somebody borrows it and the bank creates it. So the bank created that $50 bill for someone and in return demanded that he put up some sort of tangible security, which is kind of grotesque, isn't it? I mean, $50 is nothing, but if you borrowed, say, $50,000 toward a house or an expensive automobile, you'd have to pledge something of value of $50,000 in order for them to give you that $50,000 check. It's really unfair because they're giving you nothing, something they created out of nothing, and to get it, you have to pledge something that's very real and tangible and valuable. Actually, what you have to do is give them your promise to pay, like your mortgage. So what you're doing is exchanging your promise of payment for their promise of payment, because a check, is just a promise of payment when the bank is presented with the check. So it seems like an exchange of equals, doesn't it? I mean, you borrow $50,000 from them, and they give you a check that can be redeemed for $50,000, and you give them your promise to pay $50,000. So you're even, Steven. But they don't look upon it that way. They'll give you something that's strictly imaginary, a number that represents nothing in particular, and you have to pledge something real. So your $50 bill represents somebody's being ripped off to the extent of $50. And as we mentioned earlier, the only reason the system can sustain itself is because the victim can then participate in the system by using that $50 to get somebody else's goods or services.
And we're all hoping that somebody other than us will be the last party holding the bad paper. Somebody else downstream from us in the marketplace will be stuck with the bill that can't be turned into something valuable.
Yes, I'm afraid that's it.
Well, so the $50 bill that I'm holding in my hand does not allow me to enforce a claim upon the person who wrote the paper. Right? It's a bill bill, of course, means a description or discussion about obligations between two parties. I have a bill in my hand, but it doesn't give me an actual claim like a bill of lading would give, that the trucker would give to the warehouse manager when he arrives with the truckload of goods. The bill, his bill says what's in the truck, and now that he's arrived, he signed the warehouse manager signs the bill, and then he collects what's in the truck. Right? He has redemption of the note, you might say, in real goods. We don't have that with the $50 bill. You have about a minute. What's your answer to that?
The $50 bill, and in fact all Federal Reserve notes, are known as obligations of the United States, which I would think means the debt. They're an IOU, but just try to collect it and you'll find yourself out of luck. I have tried it and it doesn't work.
So, what were you offered when you tried to collect the $50 bill, Dr. Hein?
I sent the $5 bill to the Secretary of the Treasury and asked him to do whatever the law requires him to do as to satisfy the obligation, and he sent it back saying his only obligation was to return it. So that opened my eyes if they weren't already open.
Well, I know you're not disillusioned. I know you don't have. You're not a man without hope. Are you generally hopeful, Dr. Hein, about the future if Americans can just get their good senses operating?
Well, you mentioned I'm a Christian man, and I think that what the country needs is a return to Christianity. As long as we're living with man as the measure of all things, and everybody can do whatever he pleases, we're not going to have any satisfaction economically or politically.
This is David Tulis, and we're talking with Dr. Paul Hein here at Nooganomics Radio, AM 1240 and FM 92.7. It's Cash Friday, where you, my listener, and I go to our respective lenders or credit unions and draw out $100 in green rectangles just for fun, and spend it perhaps on a gift for your wife, or maybe just tuck it away in your billfold. Dr. Hein, thanks for joining us today here on Cash Friday.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Hein is the author of one of my favorite books. It's called All Work and No Pay, Life-Saving Lessons in Modern Money. If your teenage son or daughter knows nothing about the marketplace, start here. It gives a fundamental and, I might say, life-saving lesson in modern economics and actually old-fashioned and biblical economics, of which I'm greatly interested in. My name is David Tulis. I've got some important announcements for you to hear. Please stay tuned to our wonderful radio station, AM 1240 and FM 92.7. Support our advertisers. That's how this business works. Make my advertisers prosper, and they'll keep renewing with me.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Are you looking for a gospel-oriented, covenantal, family-friendly Reformed church? Dayton Reformed Presbyterian Church is a body of Christ-centered believers gathering for worship on the Lord's Day from around southeastern Tennessee. Our congregation is reformational in its outlook. It has a traditional worship service regulated by the Word of God. Prayer, singing the Psalms, reading God's holy Word, teaching, preaching the Bible, the administration of the sacrament. Dayton Reformed Pres, committed to the authority of the Bible as the inerrant, infallible Word of God. As Westminster Confession of Faith directs every Christian, we aim to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. As a Reformed church, our purpose is teaching and preaching the gospel, making and training disciples of Jesus Christ, taking dominion for our Lord's sake by applying God's holy and perfect law to every area of life. We would be honored to have you join us for worship. Dayton Reformed Presbyterian, this Sunday morning at 11 at Dayton Community Chapel, 184 Mulberry Avenue, Dayton. Click DaytonRPC.org. Click DaytonRPC.org. 184 Mulberry Avenue, Dayton.
What kind of name is Herb Garanzi? Anyway, Herb builds storage sheds. He's an Apison, you can call it. His sheds are cheaper than other people's. And the surprise is, when you go and look at them online or in person, they're sturdier than the other guys. Local economy at its best. Not shipped in from a factory in Minnesota or somewhere. Herb delivers. He'll set it up for free, up to 12 by 24, starting at $900. Blue, green, yellow, you name it. Pick a metal or shingle roof, and metal corners are standard. Make a Herb's Yard Barn bump resistant. The skids underneath, not 4x4, but 4x6, 6x6. On top of that, inside, extra beams for sturdier construction. Apison 503-3741. Apison 503-3741. On the keyboard, herbsyardbarns.com. herbsyardbarns.com.
He's doled out so much cash, such a huge mountain of cash, that he's become a national star. Rick Davis. You know the story. Cash, 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 and more cash. People can't believe it. They want to see it. And now Rick Davis has a new TV show. National TV, USA and Canada. He's got the gold and silver, diamonds and rings. You get dizzy just thinking about it. Rick's selling. Rick's buying. Cash, 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 and more cash. And now a mountain of cash catching the Hollywood spotlight. You know where it is, Brainerd Road. Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. Cash, 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 and national TV cash. That's really big. Everyone wants to see it. Money flying out the door. Rick Davis is America's jeweler. It's better than Hollywood. It's right here. Cash, 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 and more cash. Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. Brainerd Road.
You love me. You really love me.
Your marriage is over. You've been abandoned, betrayed. You're angry, shattered, and heartbroken. Don't go it alone. When you are facing divorce, you need an experienced advocate to help protect your rights in future. And you need it from a man with a sympathetic heart, but a hard nose. Attorney Clay Whitaker will fight for you in this most confusing and bitter time in your life. Clay Whitaker, 756-6400.
It is Eric Jones hard into the outside wall, and they are still 3 and 4 wide. It looks like we're racing at Talladega.
Caution flag is out. It looked like Denny Hamlin was trying to get by Ricky Stenhouse. Got into the back of Ricky at the line. Man, that's a close one. Matt Kenseth wins stage 1.
Green checkered flag is out, and Brad Keselowski has won stage 2.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. into the wall. That will bring out the caution. Caution waving once again. And again, it's Dale Earnhardt Jr. involved.
Oh, trouble. Ty Dillon has gotten turned to the inside of the racetrack, and Clint Boyer has just nailed him.
Matt Kenseth falling back, the field storming by. Something wrong. Now we see sparks from Kenseth's Toyota.
Larson chucks him off. Coming off turn number 2. Nose to tail. Now it's Logano to the high side in 3.
Joey Logano, a winner here at the Richmond International Raceway.
Here at Live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
The voice of NASCAR. WDLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga, WSDT Saudi Daisy Chattanooga.
CBS News. I'm Steve Kaif, and the Trump administration's turned to the U.S. Supreme Court as it tries to revive the president's blocked travel ban. Live to White House correspondent Stephen Portnoy.